Hello, I am so excited today. We're with Tina McIntosh with Joy's House, and she's one of our original members. In fact, was kind of the ones behind this idea as we were putting Life's Co-Pilot together. So, Tina, tell me about Joy's House and what you guys do there.
Sure. We are a not-for-profit adult day service and we have caregiver support services. So if someone is not familiar with adult day service, I always say I wouldn't say it this way if there was a camera on, but here we are. When people compare adult day service to childcare, those of us in the industry, we get a little ruffled, right? Because these are adults we're working with and caring for, and they're not children, not to be treated like children, to be respected for who they are now and who they've been their entire lives. And all that is true. And the structure of an adult day service is set up like childcare. So I understand the comparison, but these are adults that we're caring for. And so our hours to help understand that comparison, our hours are Monday through Friday. We're open from the morning until the evening, and right now have some of the COVID hours, but going forward, all that changes. And so we are caring for adults who are looking for safety and community, who might not be safe. Most are not going to be safe if they're home alone, but really want that safety and community. So living with Alzheimer's or related dementias, strokes, Parkinson's, MS, you name it, we've probably seen the diagnosis. We've been around for 21 years. And then we have the caregiver support services as well.
Well, excellent. Well, how long has Joy's House been there?
Yeah.
Was this your baby? Did you create this or?
Yeah, I always say that I'm blessed to be the seed for the organization, but there are a lot of people who helped us to come to fruition 21 years ago. I was a baby when we started. It was fun, and it was so needed and still is. And I think that's the sad part for me, Jim, is that we've been around for 21 years and we've known our entire lifespan of Joy's House that there was a huge need for what we do. And that need's still there. It's not getting any smaller. One, because we're underserved when it comes to aging related services, but also because we're living longer.
So how did you get into this? What attracted you to start Joy's House?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I'll give you the short version, then you can ask me anything you want. I'm a Christian, and it was very God-driven for me. So I had volunteered at an adult day service when I was in college through my sorority, and I loved the folks that I was around. They really sat on my heart. And even though I went on to do other things, I became an event planner. There was something about that experience and the people that I had spent time with that just really stuck in my soul. And then I had some personal tragedies and had to make a choice in my life of what I was going to do, and decided to follow where I really felt like God was shining a light. I mean, if I'm being honest, I always say, we all know those taps. And, for me, I'm going to say God, and for somebody else, I understand they might look at it differently. But regardless, the like tap, 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 like you keep feeling like you're getting nudged and tapped. And I felt like God just held up a 2x4 and he was like, girl. And I was like, okay, I'm listening. And so quit my job and started doing everything I could to make some money. And step by step, Joy's House came to fruition. It's hard to believe it's been 21 years.
Well, at least you're smart enough to do it before the 2x4. I always wait for the 2x4, so it's just
you get knocked right upside the head.
Oh,
I find that hard to believe. I know you.
So, well, tell me, somebody that doesn't know what adult day centers are, don't really understand that. I don't think that it's well understood, especially in our community. And I'll be real frank. I did something last night, so I've only been, I've 24 hours, not even 24 hours into this, to try to help people expand what Life's Co-Pilot could do for people. I ended up joining a whole bunch of caregiver groups on Facebook. So now my Facebook feed is literally just frustration and pain. Yes. Okay, as I'm seeing this, and I'm like, oh my God. And and then I'll be in there going, well, here is a video that we did, or here's, that maybe can help. But I'm realizing these people are in it every day up to here and stressed to the max, and are not getting this information. They don't have it, so. Yeah. So what's it like with adult day? Tell me what that's going to be for that consumer
Yeah.
they're frustrated. They don't know what to do. They're the people that are filling my Facebook page right now.
Well, and I want to answer that. I also, what you said, that experience of, people filling your feed with frustration and desperation makes me think. I had written something last year. So in 2020, I'd written something and I said, we would never think of sending a loved one to a place, a building, a service, anything where there is one caregiver 24/7. We just wouldn't do it, right? And yet during all the quarantine time that we had from COVID, that's exactly what happened, Jim, is that caregivers were the one caregiver 24/7. And it's really had an effect on our mental health and what we know we need. And so adult day is an option for typically somebody who wants their loved one to stay home with them. So let's say it's my husband and I want my husband to continue living in our home, eating dinner, at our table, breathing the same space, sleeping in the same bed. Like I want that. He wants that. We know those are our wishes. And I don't know what to do though, because I'm still working. And so while I go to work during the day, or I go and have social time with other people, or I sit in my home alone without the energy of anybody else to care for, which is fantastic. I always tell caregivers, you got to do that. I can take him to Joy's house, or I can take him to another adult day. We're not the only adult day around. There are some really great ones. And so I can take him to Joy's house, drop him off in the morning. He gets greeted by staff who know him. It's kind of his cheers. He goes in, everybody knows his name and knows what he likes and who he's been his entire life. Also knows what his shortcomings might be, what his needs might be, where he needs help with toileting or medication or, eating, all those things. And then at the end does activities. We do activities all day long. He can rest if he needs to. And then at the end of the day, I pick him back up and I get to be his wife, where normally I'm his driver and his nurse and, his housekeeper and chef and all of the things. And so I get to be his wife and take him home and sit at that table and have that meal together and get him ready for evening. And he's tired because caregivers know, I'm sure you see it in that feed, if we are left to our own, we don't sleep like we normally do. And then as a caregiver, that's really hard too. So.
Right. Well, one thing I hate bringing back that feed up, but it's fresh in my mind. Okay. But
yeah,
I know statistically that 1 in 6 caregiver, or 1 in 6 millennials is a caregiver for an older family member or what have you. I know that from a statistic standpoint. I'm seeing my feed with it, and I'm seeing faces attached to it giving up on dating, giving up on possibly getting married, giving up on whatever. But they have an opportunity, anybody, if they have to work, if they want to have a life out, to bring in an income, that's when you could come in to help out as well and give them that reprieve and give them a different life for a period of time. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is. And the reality is caregiving is typically not forever, and so we don't want people to give up their jobs, their income, their lives, their hobbies, their social time, their self-care. I mean, I can't remember the statistic off the top of my head. You may know it. It's just left me, but how often it's the caregiver who becomes ill or dies. It's more often than not before their loved one. And what a tragedy that is. And so you've got places like Joy's House that we can help you with that, or you've got, others. I mean, you're sharing that information through Life's Copilot. And so it's important for people to know they don't have to do it alone, and they don't have to be in crisis to make the phone calls. I think that's a big deal. And for us as a not-for-profit, we're really, not-for-profits are still hoping to make a profit because we turn it back into programs. But
Right.
Part of that for us is that we also have a scholarship fund. And so anyone can donate to it and anybody can use it. There's a process you have to go through. But if a family says there's no way I could afford adult day, because any service adds up if there's a cost to it. I mean, Taco Bell adds up if you
Right.
get enough,
Right.
And so we have a scholarship fund. We've never turned a family away. In 21 years, we've never turned a family away because they couldn't afford the service.
That's excellent. Now, another thing I know that you're doing, because you're very much a giver and very much trying to help people through this process. I remember how I found you is my wife heard you on, I think it was Saturday mornings on,
Yeah.
on Caregiver Crossing. And she goes, you got to talk to this woman. That's literally how we met.
Sweet.
Okay.
Yep.
So tell us about Caregiver Crossing.
Yeah. Caregiver Crossing was a radio show for 7 years, 10 years. For a long time, we had a radio show and it was wonderful. And then that moved into a podcast. And so we have Caregiver Crossing, the podcast right now. You can find it anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts. And it is geared for caregivers. And I think, Jim, one of the things that struck me when it was a radio show is it was on at 7 o'clock on Saturday mornings. I mean, it was early, but for caregivers, that's a prime time. And any speaking engagement I would have after that, inevitably somebody in the room would come up and say, I listened to Caregiver Crossing. How are your chickens? I mean, it was so weird. And I'd say, well, tell me who you're caring for. And a lot of times they'd say, I'm not yet. I know it's coming and I'm trying to prepare, which hats off to them because most caregivers, we don't prepare, right? We react. But it really struck me on how much of a community was needed for education and connections and just really being that place where people could tune in and realize they're not alone. So having a community.
That's awesome. Well, tell me, outside of when you're working, doing all these things, is there anything that you do for you? Tell me about your family or you have chickens, I hear. So yeah.
I have chickens. I mean, Joy's house is for me. I love what I do so much. And I love being able to serve and walk alongside people during this time. I do have a life outside of it actually. And so I'm a wife. I mentioned I'm a Christian. I have 3 children. So I have one in college, one in high school, and one in middle school. We've got a house full of ridiculous animals. I mean, dogs, cats, chickens, sheep, and goats. And we live in the city limits. So it's kind of absurd. And then I recently started my own personal podcast called Embrace the Imbalance. And so you can find that anywhere you can find Caregiver Crossing. It's, on all of the main podcast channels, but Embrace the Imbalance. I'm a big believer, Jim, that all of our lives we are taught to balance everything, balance the food we eat, balance the work life, lifestyle, balance everything. And I think it sets us up to fail. And so I'm a big believer in embracing the imbalance. And so I want to be really great where I am with you right now. And then when you and I get off this call, I want to be great for my family tonight. And I just don't want to set myself up to fail to try and be great all the time. So it's a podcast about lessons learned from all kinds of people. And it's really been an incredible journey. And some of them are really fun. Some of them are really deep. But in every single one, there are lessons that you'll be reminded about or that you'll learn. And then there'll be a book by the same name coming out at some point before too long. So.
Excellent. So basically you got nothing going on your plate.
No, nothing. No, I'm right. If you need me, I'm right here.
So how does someone get a hold of you?
Yeah. So joyshouse.org is our website, Facebook and all of the social media channels too, or you can just pick up the phone. I mean, that's old school, but we can pick up the phone and just call. You can call 317-254-0828 or just email me personally at tina@joyshouse.org.
Thank you so much. Well,